Everybody, welcome into Going Public. I am Harry McCullough. This week's guest is, of course, the Executive Director of the Terrebonne Port Commission, Mr. David Ravelli. David, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm
Good New Year's?
ready to start a good new year off, and I think it's going to be a good year for everybody.
What changes with the port during the new year? I mean, y'all fiscal year probably doesn't end on the calendar year, so it's probably works a little differently. But does
Yeah.
anything change as we go to 24?
Not really. I mean, we work harder, but if any of my board members are watching, we it's just a matter of getting back in the saddle and continuing to push, and we got a lot of stuff that we're working on, and I think it's going to be a really good year for everybody.
Yeah, well, we always talk about, what's going on at HNC. It's always depth, dredging, those kind of things. So anything different this time? Where are we at? Give us some updates.
But prior to Christmas every year, the North Pole has been calling me and making sure that we have enough depth for Santa to land. And I kind of, I didn't want to brush it off, but I was like the middleman in the middleman, and so what I did was I gave him the contact name of the person that I deal with at the Corps in New Orleans District, and they contacted him directly. And I think they contacted him back in October, and they got a dredge out there, and they started dredging, and they dredged all the bad areas. And Santa didn't have any trouble this year. He landed, everything was good. Everybody got all their presents, and I got a sack of dredge material is what I got, but that's just, that's because of who I am,
Yeah, that's right.
And I used it, I filled some holes in my yard,
That's
so
right.
it was good. But yeah, so
Nowadays, coal, right?
that's right. No, I never got coal. I was never good enough to
dredging
get coal.
material.
Yeah, I just get some dirt, so, but I use
Right.
it, but anyway, but yeah, so everything went well with the Houma Nav and Santa, and we thank the Corps, New Orleans District for doing that, and just to follow up with that is they dredged all the high areas, and they
Well, are we catching up water wise? Because we were way low, right?
yeah, the water levels were low, but I think it's
catching up?
getting more normal. Of course the inland dredging has been complete since last year, and that was the first time in 15 years that we dredged. So I don't think we're gonna have any issues with the inland areas. It's all in the bay. Okay, and so the dredge that they sent for Christmas out in October got all the high areas, all the shallow areas out of the way. The weather kind of caught up with them in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and they've been going down on downtime. And actually, the dredge was it was a dual contract. Started Terrebonne and then end up at the Barataria Waterway. So because of the weather and the downtime, they decided we had I don't know, but 2 more weeks left, but they went ahead and they moved them to the Barataria Waterway. They're going to do that project, which is only going to take them about 30 days. And then they're going to bring it back and finish up the bay after that. So, we can't complain. It's we're getting dredging, we're getting the funding. It's different than it was, 4 or 5 years ago where we couldn't get money. Now we're pretty much getting money every year, an adequate budget. So it's been working a lot better. And you just got to stay on them, And under Obama's administration, it got to where, we weren't getting anything, and less than $1 million a year, and we couldn't. And then the port and the parish and the state all in different years had to put up to the tune of about $5 million, okay, over a 3-4 year period just to keep it maintained, and we shouldn't have to pay for that. The Corps is mandated by Congress to maintain the channel, and the fact that everybody and their brother had to put extra money in to supplement the Corps was hogwash. We shouldn't have had to do that, but we did because our industry and our economy
Sure.
depends on it.
Right.
But Garrett and Scalise and those guys fixed it. So
It does seem like the ball has moved a little bit from that regard, right?
Yeah.
As far as having representation in Congress and look, depending on, I guess, what happens in an election too, it may change from more of a green industry to maybe going back to energy.
yeah.
And so I guess that all plays in. Green energy hadn't been a bad thing though, right?
No,
It looks like
no,
a
not
lot
at
of
all.
people are getting ready and ramping up. So that might be a possible way to improve our industry
Right.
with those support systems.
Well, everybody wants a clean environment, okay? I mean, I don't care who you are. You could be the biggest oil company in the world. You want a clean environment. And over time, over the last 20 years, our industry has cleaned up a lot, okay? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we have one of the cleanest oil and gas industries in the world, okay? And if you go to China, and they don't
Right.
they don't care, you know.
Brazil,
but,
Venezuela.
But
Yeah.
we take care of the environment. We have a lot of laws and regulations to the point where it actually a lot of times it ties the hands of the oil companies, but they do it because that's what you know everybody wants, and if we want a clean environment and we want to live longer, you know, we need to do that, you know. And then now you're talking about the green energy coming in. You got the windmills, okay. Then you have greener fuels like diesel. There's a
Right.
green diesel, and I'm not gonna get into the chemistry because
Right.
it's kind of complicated. I don't want to misspeak on it, but yeah, there's fuels that burn less, have less carbon
Footprint.
footprint,
Right.
and the oil companies and and even the airport are leaning towards that because the big oil companies, they live and die by their carbon footprint, okay?
Right.
And if any of their vendors can reduce their carbon emissions, it helps the oil companies. So they're starting to push that real hard. And like, the airport has PHI, all the helicopters, and they fly all the people, I mean, that's a huge part of the airport. And actually, I don't think there's any airport in the at least the state of Louisiana that has as many helicopter landings and takeoffs. So the oil company, well, they've developed a fuel called SAF, which is it's a safe aviation fuel, and it has a very, very low carbon emission, and the oil companies are pushing their vendors, which is the helicopter companies and even airplanes, to start using it. So that
It would help their bottom line, their score, their environmental score.
and it helps the environment. So the Houma Airport is really looking hard at creating that at the airport, and the port is looking to be part of it because a lot of that fuel has to be barged in. And then it has to be blended because different helicopters are going to require a different blend,
Right.
And so it has to be blended when it's needed.
Almost like on the pump, right? When you got, this has 15% ethanol, or whatever, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So these certain type of helicopters might need a 40% blend.
Right.
Then there's other helicopters that might need a 50% blend. Then you bring airplanes in. Airplanes have a different blend. So it's a matter of what do you need
So a
and when do you
blending
need it.
facility might set up shop at the port.
Yeah, so we're looking at I mean, it's a long shot, but it's something that could happen.
Sure.
And we're very interested in doing it.
I was driving to Baton Rouge the other day from New Orleans, and I had to get off because I had a wreck, of course, on the span there that goes to Laplace. So I went through Narco, and I was surprised to see when I passed Narco that it was a green diesel facility.
Yes, and
which is I think goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah, green diesel is it's the way they make it and blend it that it emits less.
Which would be more for trucks, but also
yes.
could be used for boats. I would
In the
imagine.
marine industry.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that too. If we get a company to come in that's interested in blending the SAF fuel, why not set up shop and start selling green diesel?
Blending green diesel.
And that way it'll the vessels that work and look, the oil companies are going to start pushing that too. Just like the helicopters, they use all of these supply vessels. So hey, y'all need to start having less emissions because it helps our bottom line.
Right.
And that's what everything is measured by these days. And and like I said, everybody's all for a clean environment. It's just that when it first came out, the mindset in Washington was we're going to do it now. Okay, well, you can't do it now. You have to transition. You have to, and from my standpoint, I don't want to lose any jobs over it. I want
Well,
to
that's
create
it. Right.
jobs.
If we can
So-
create green jobs, that's even better.
Right. So instead of building the platforms, they start building platforms for the windmills. Okay. And hopefully that transitions pretty evenly. And then now we're going to have these fuel blends and selling fuel. So it's all going to eventually create jobs. And that's what that's what we want. We got to stay working, and it's not that we're 100%
Yeah, it's not just
gung ho
right.
hydrocarbons.
Right.
That's just what we live off of now, and so we want to make sure the transition is palatable to the public and all of our industry, and our economy. Because if you stop hydrocarbons today, I mean, you don't even have to know what you're talking about to know that it ain't gonna work.
No, we're not ready for that.
So that's basically what we're looking at, and you and I had a conversation earlier about the windmills, the payback, from what it costs to put them together and put these windmills out in the Gulf of Mexico, and what you get out of it, it's way far apart. It costs a lot more than you're ever gonna recoup. But what they do is they feed the grid with the electricity that the windmills make, and so then you burn less hydrocarbons on the other side, making that electricity, and it's going to have to be federally funded. It's the
Right.
only way that's going to be able to transition.
They'll have to start it.
Yeah, and once it's
Seed money.
Yep. So
And then down the road, right, and then somebody's going to find a way to make,
technology gets better. I mean,
it'll be able to.
look at cell phones.
Yes.
You used to have one that big. Now you got a computer in your
It's all
hand.
about being scalable for the
Exactly.
companies coming in. All right, we'll take a break. More Going Public right after this.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Welcome back to Going Public. I am Harry McCullough. We're sitting here with David Ravelet, of course, the Executive Director of the Terrebonne Port Commission. We're talking about the new year, 24. There's a lot of new stuff going on. Let's start with the surveys, though. Where can people go if they want to check out the surveys that have been done and on the web?
If you go to terrebonneport.com, okay, on our website, there's a link. It's just a little. It says agency surveys. You click on it, and it goes to the Corps' website, where they update them as they survey. They don't survey everything all the time, so you have to look at the dates on the survey plots. But like for instance, the inland was surveyed in June, and everything is 15 feet or more of depth, which is where we want it. And that's not going to change for years. Okay, we don't get any north-south sediment in that part of the channel. The bay is where we get all of our east-west sediment, and that's where we get the sediment there, and that's why we have to dredge there. I've been port director for 18 years, and right after I started, maybe my third year, they dredged the inland, and that's the last time they dredged it until this past year. So it usually maintains and holds its depth for a long time. Mm-hmm. And the reason that they had to dredge it was because of the hurricane.
Right.
When the hurricane comes in, it puts sediment everywhere, Just for instance, the Bubba Dove blew open because they didn't plan for a force to come from the north. They build those things and design them for the force to come from the south to hold back the water. Well, the differential on the outside, I think it was 8 foot differential from the outside to the inside, and that's a lot of pressure. And it actually broke open,
Shared some pins.
and the water rushing down the Houma Ave dug a 50-foot hole right on the outside of the lock or the floodgate. So all of that sediment had to go somewhere, and so it got deposited in different areas. So that was one of the reasons why we did have to dredge. But other than that, the inland is pretty good for the next 10, 15 years, unless we have a bad storm. The bay was surveyed 5/31, which is May 31, and it has over 20 feet available in the dredge reach from mile 4.4 to 9.4. And as we discussed earlier, there's some areas that they have to come back, and they will in about another month or two and finish it up, and we should have over 15 foot throughout. The bar, which is at mile 0, which is right at the Gulf, it goes out another 3 miles that we have to maintain because of the natural 15 foot to 16 to 18 foot contour doesn't start to 3 or 4 miles after you get past the sea buoy. So that was surveyed in January of 23. And it looked good then, and it had 18 to 20 foot, 22 foot of water. So, and that's one of the areas that they're going to check when they come back, just to make sure it's maintained. But that's, so once again, terreboneport.com, and on our webpage, you can find a link to the surveys for the Army Corps of Engineers, and it's the latest and greatest. Like I said, sometimes it's 6 months old, but that's the last time they surveyed it.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the funds. The funds are all set and ready to go.
So fiscal year 24 funds have all been expended. That's what we're working on now. And when the dredge comes back for the last month or so, that's the end of that funding. So then we look to October to get re-up for fiscal year 25, and that's what we'll use next year. So far everything is good funding wise. We don't have to struggle for money like we used to. That was a big battle. That was the first battle you had to tackle when dealing with the dredging, is you had to have the funding. And when the federal government wasn't funding it, it was difficult. And there were years where the parish put in $2.5 million, we put in $500,000. Then the next year, a year after, the state had to put in $2 million to dredge because the funds wasn't there.
Right.
But now that the funds have Pandora's box, or whatever you want to call it, the safe open, and now we get adequate funding every year. So basically, the Corps, New Orleans district, they survey the channel at a certain time, and they report back to Washington and say, okay, this is what we need. And then and in the past 3 or 4 years, that's what they got. So if it keeps on like that, we in good shape.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of Washington, obviously this is an election year, so there'll be a lot of stuff going on.
It's going to be an interesting year, I can just tell you. I don't think a lot of real government's going to get done.
Right.
Okay, it's going to be a lot of politics, and it's
might
just
be court battles, might be investigations,
it's just the
impeachments
world we
and all.
live in,
Right.
and you gotta grin and bear it. I mean, it's just the way it is. So hopefully everything by this time next year, it's all behind us, and we can move on.
Yeah. So we'll see what goes on there, and things could swing wildly, whether it's
Right.
it's Biden or Trump or DeSantis or
You don't
Haley
know.
or whatever.
So it's just a matter of hold on, and we'll see what happens.
We'll see what goes on. What about the state? We do have new leadership now. Jeff Landry comes in.
Yes.
He'll be the first time in 8 years we have a Republican in the mansion in Baton Rouge. Does that make any difference? Again, a lot of your stuff is federally funded, it seems like, but
Well,
you
we get
do
a lot of money from the state. Yeah, we
too.
do get a lot of money from the state.
Will that change at all?
I like to think it will. I like to think it'll get better. Okay, we're gonna have a Republican governor. We're gonna have a Republican House, and we're gonna have a Republican
super
Senate.
majority in both?
Yeah. So I mean, and that's all good for industry. Okay, because most of the ones that want to get rid of hydrocarbons are on the Democratic side, and Republicans want to too, but they want to do it smartly.
Right.
And I'm not picking on the Democrats. I mean, I'm an independent, so
Sure.
I just, see what I say what I see,
Sure.
But yeah, Jeff Landry's gonna get in. I think the inauguration's on the 4th. Is that right?
It's on the 8th.
On the 8th, I'm sorry. So after the inauguration, then he'll start making his appointments to all his cabinet and his boards, and I'm sure there's 300 or 400 appointments he's got to make for
Right.
sure, and some of them very important,
Which will be right. And actually, from where your standpoint is in the port commission, some of those appointments are more important than actually the elections.
Right. In fact, one in particular is CPRA. They got a lot of money. They get all the BP oil spill money. They get all the fine money, and then also the government, the legislature allocates money to them, and that's a extremely important entity for coastal erosion, for what we do with dredging, for the rocks on the HNC. There's a lot of things that that CPRA can help us with that they haven't been in the past. Okay, so they've been rebuilding the Barrier Islands, but guess what happens? When they put the material on the island, it winds up in our channel, and then we got to beg the Corps to come and pump it out. Right. So, but we need to work together, and I stress that in the past couple of years just fell on deaf ears. They have a mandate that they can't utilize any of the funds that they get to help industry. And they told me that for 15 years or 10 years, whatever, however long they've been there. And I finally got tired of hearing them say that. And I said, well, by the same token, can you use the money that you get to hurt industry? Right. And when I asked that question, boy, they didn't know how to answer it. Right. I said, because a lot of things y'all do hurts industry and y'all don't realize it. And if we work together, we could resolve some of these issues. So I'm hoping that that we can get some traction with CPRA in the upcoming year. And that all depends on who is appointed as the chairman.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, and you talk about science and some of these things, if you look just on Grand Isle, you got one side has rocks, the other one doesn't, and you see what a differences make. You got Raccoon Island now and Raccoon Point that now have rocks on it, and you can see what the difference that island has made.
For some reason, the environmentalists think that rocks are not natural, so we shouldn't use them. Okay. But like you said earlier, the Mississippi River being levied off is why we need rocks, because we're not rebuilding anything anymore.
That wasn't indigenous to Louisiana.
No,
right?
no. And the river would flood its banks every year. It would deposit sediment, just like a hydraulic dredge, a huge hydraulic. And it's what built Terrebonne Parish. It's what built Lafourche Parish over the last 5,000 years. And then all of a sudden in the 30s, they just cut it off. And now all the sediment that used to build our land is going off the continental shelf. Okay, so what good did that do? Now it keeps the people from flooding, but it wasn't well thought out. When it was done, I'm sure they had some people saying, "Hey, you're gonna starve all the area," but those are the people that they didn't listen to. And so the people were flooding. We're gonna stop the flooding, and and then you got to live with the result.
The rocks seem like they've made a difference, right? And you can see them rebuilding, letting nature rebuild with sand,
exactly,
with fortified, materials.
Well, if you just go throw some rocks out without studying it, without figuring out where's the best place to put them, they don't do any good. And that's what happened early on. And that's why a lot of environmentalists say, see, I told you, it don't work. But if you study it and you know the currents are going this way, and if you put the rocks here, you're going to trap sediment, and you can see those rocks go straight out. Okay, just a dike coming straight out. But then all of a sudden, the sand comes up around them, and that's because it traps it, and that, it works.
Yeah.
So you got to be smart about it and place them in the right areas.
Okay. And the last minute, as we're going down the roster of government, parish president. We got a new parish president here, Jason Bedrell.
Yes, absolutely. Jason's a good friend of mine. I've been knowing Jason for a long time, and I think he's gonna hit. The other day, I said, "Boy, you got a big saddle. You got a big saddle to get in." He said, "Man, I'm already riding the horse." I said, "Okay, good job." So I think he's gonna do very well. I think he's got the right disposition. He's smart, and I think he can organize and do the job that he has to do, and I think he's gonna hit the ground running, and I think we're gonna have a really, really good 4 years with him.
Yeah, good for business. So
absolutely,
yeah, so,
absolutely.
We'll definitely see that. And again, New Year's, new leadership in a lot of places.
Happy
Dave,
New Year.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right.
That's going public for this edition. We'll see you next time. I'm Harry McCullough.